Hey, welcome to 23 Degrees Sideways. I thought I'd talk a little bit this morning about a friend I had who died really young. I think it was 49. Geez, he must have died a decade ago? Maybe a little more. No, less. 8 years? Maybe. Whatever. I knew him for 12 years, last 12 years of his life. He was a really nice guy. You know, he had some very specific views about computers, computer technology, artificial intelligence, CNC machining and stuff. And it really, really screwed him. It just absolutely screwed him over. Here's the thing. He wasn't very physically healthy. He had a lot of body problems. He died early. He wasn't very mobile. He was mostly on a fixed income, Social Security disability, that kind of thing. And he'd had this dream for years and years of making model railroad stuff. He wanted to make working steam engines. He wanted to build a little town, not like super tiny, but like mid-sized railroad stuff. And he needed to machine a lot of the parts. Like, this is not stuff you can buy, and what you can buy is usually kits. And you take little tiny lathes and mills and drill presses, and you build this stuff. And it's really cool. It's really fun. It's a fantastic way to get into the hobby of machining. It's just great. So he was also a science fiction nerd, like the Star Trek type. And he had a thing about computers. He had a thing about CAD, computer-aided design and drafting. He had a thing about CNC, computer numeric control of machines, which isn't quite as computerized as people think it is all the time, although it's getting way better. And he really wanted to have this setup where he could draw a picture in his head, translate it to CAD, not sure how. He wanted to talk to the computer and have the computer, and then it would just come out of the CNC machine. It would come out of the lathe as a lamp post or parts of a steam engine, and it would be cool, and it would be awesome. And he never learned how to do any machining operations because he didn't want to get stuck doing manual machines. Now, just if you don't know anything about machining, the best way to build a CNC machine is to start with a manual machine and learn to machine the parts to put the servo motors on, and then get your control boards and stuff. They're all available, and do the control work. At a hobbyist level, this isn't like a professional industrial level, but at a hobbyist level, where you don't have a $10,000 a month support contract, building the parts, because the parts will break, the parts will wear out, that's just how it goes. Building the parts is the way to do it. I offered him, over the course of a decade, I offered him at least 4 lathes and 2 mills. I usually, would have something floating around, like a little old Unimat 3, or, a Machine X5 or something, a small modeling type lathe. I offered him everything from a Unimat, Chinese Unimat clone on a heavier base with trapezoidal ways and CNC kits available, to old AA109, old Craftsman hobby lathe. These are all metalworking lathes. To a Sieg C0 small tabletop micro mill, Machine X. Like, I offered him a lot of stuff, and he always refused. He always talked about how he wanted to do this stuff, but he wouldn't do the stuff unless it came as a CNC package, where he could make the CAD software do it. He didn't know what a workflow was, so he wouldn't go through the idea of, I'm gonna draw out the part in CAD, and then I'm going to do a workflow, How do I start with a chunk of metal and make it into this? You have to have a workflow. You have to have a pattern of operations. It doesn't just happen. You have to turn parts. You have to turn them around in the machine. You have to move them. You have to do the drilling operations after you've got the center. Like there's a workflow, and none of this mattered. The CAD and the CNC was what mattered. That was the magic that was going to happen. He wasn't a dumb guy. He didn't have the experience to go from A to B, and he didn't have the hand machining experience to know how to do a workflow, how to turn a piece of brass into a screw and a nut. Basic stuff. Take a chunk of brass, hex brass, start with a hex, why not? And cut it and make it into a screw and a matching nut, and then boom, you've learned a lot of machining right there. Do it with leaded steel first, and it's even better because brass will eat your machine, but you don't know that because you've never done any machining. So he died, never having touched a hand wheel, and never having done any of his dreams. So now we're in the age of AI and STL files and 3D printing and stuff, and I keep getting hit by this stuff online. Like I get messages on Discord servers periodically, every week, twice a week, boating or machining discords or whatever. And I'll get these guys, and they are self-advertised experts. Okay, this one this week, he's a self-advertised expert CAD designer. So he throws me this sample project that he's done, and it's a boat, and it's fairly obviously a stock boat hull, but he is sized up. The beam is way too wide for a boat that is 50 feet long. I mean, we're talking like a 35-foot beam, and it's a V-bottom hull, outboard motor type of like 20-foot runabout, 16-foot runabout hull. Like that's what it is. You can recognize it. It's a little utility boat, a little John boat. Basically, it's a John boat hull, slightly cathedraled, not totally flat bottom, but it's a John boat hull. And he's just scaled it up. No thought about how the balance works, how the handling works. And then he scaled up a helm station. And it's like in a 1-to-4 ratio, or scale, 1/4 scale, on this boat that is already a 3-to-1 scale. And it's sitting right in between two of the tiny little airline passenger seats. He's got multiple rows of seats. This is supposed to be a pleasure craft, not a water taxi. But he's got a couple rows of seats there, and the seats are 4-row seats, but they're like airline seats or bus seats. They're really small, really narrow, and he's got the helm station, giant sized, between two of them. Not far enough away for someone to stand up in front of it. You got to sit there with the wheel. I don't think there's enough room for your knees. We scaled this out. He talked to me about it a little bit. And then there's some sort of floaty pad in the front, which is how we know it's not a water taxi, because there's a queen bed in the front walk-around deck, which makes no sense at all, and there's no shade structure and everything. And then he does have a shade structure, and it's hardtop, and it is a flattened dinghy hull. Like, you can literally see the hull shape. It's got all the little bits of being a flattened Zodiac dinghy hull. And then he's got some sort of internal jet propulsion engine thing, and a completely flat rear transom designed to hang outboards off of, except that the boat is like 5 times the size of what it should be. And he's an expert. He's trying to literally sell this design, and he doesn't know he doesn't know anything. Like, he's never made a paper boat as a model and put it in the water. And I really think we have a lot of this. We have a lot of this problem. We run into this with coders, too. Coders who think that because they've done something with some semi-automated code generating project that they know how to design safe software in the real world that won't kill you. And then, of course, Boeing or Airbus or something happens. What happens with AI? You already see it. You've already seen it. You have people who have decided that art no longer requires any education, any concepts, any aesthetic sense, any balance, nothing, because the AI will just do it for you. Or writing, or whatever, work, advertising, marketing. And I guess I just want to put out there like a caution or something. Watch out for this. Sometimes doing little projects manually will give you the experience to take these automation forms that you have available to you and make yourself into a really successful expert. But it's not going to happen if you use the automation as a cheat code or a shortcut or an excuse to not learn your area of expertise. It's one thing for an expert coder to use AI to help with his development cycle. It's another for someone who doesn't know what a variable is to try to use AI to generate professional code. Make any sense? I don't know. But yeah. Poor Steve. He died without ever having built a lamppost or a steam engine because he wouldn't touch the hand wheel because he didn't have the money for the machine gods. Don't throw yourself at the feet of the machine gods. Stay sideways.